I wanted to start by talking just briefly about this. I picked up a friend the other day, an old friend. It was Henry David Thoreau's Walden. It's a book that I hated in high school, but I've since read many, many times since high school. And this particular version that I picked up was the 2000 Millennial Edition, which has a wonderful introduction by Bill McGibbon. Now, Bill McGibbon is a nature writer, and one of the things that intrigued me about his introduction was that he said it sometimes takes him 3 or 4 days. When he goes out on these epic hikes, it sometimes takes him 3 or 4 days to get out of what he called the middle ground. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Here's a guy that's used to being outside, used to being in nature, used to writing about nature, these sorts of things. And it still took him 3 or 4 days to get out of the middle ground. That middle ground is his definition of the middle ground was the emails that we write constantly, the phone calls, the obligations that we have, the meetings that we have. It keeps our minds busy, so busy that we have a really tough time noticing the petals of a flower, noticing that bug that is trying to decay the log that it lives under, and also noticing the larger symbiotic relationships within the ecosystem. How the wind and the rain play in the forest, how the shade of the forest affects the transition zones. Those symbiotic relations are so important in the environmental ecosystem, it takes him sometimes 3 or 4 days to just start noticing those things. And I thought, isn't that an interesting analogy for innovation? We all are so busy in our lives, so busy with our, look, I'm so busy, I have 2, see, right? So busy with our mobile devices, so busy with our phone calls and our meetings and our obligations to our colleagues that we really have a tough time looking at the symbiotic relationships within our hospitals and within our health systems, as well as looking at the teeny petals of the flower or the bug, which are perhaps our frontline employees. What are they doing that can change our organization? So I would challenge every one of you to think about that middle ground as I'm talking and to think about how you might get out of the middle ground. So 3 keys to innovation. How can you innovate within your own organization? First of all, I truly, truly, truly believe if you take anything away from today, this is it. It starts with a vision from above. That's you guys, right? That's you guys. You have to say, we are an innovation company. We are going to change the way we do business, the way we provide care, the way we talk to the people that work for us and that come in who we serve. So, as Christy said, I'm going to talk about design thinking. Here is the lens in which designers think. So we think about design challenges from a business perspective or a business lens. What is viable? How do we make money? How do we steal market share? How do we create value? If we're working for an NGO or a not-for-profit organization, it's what value can I bring to my users, right? So the other lens is technology lens. Now, this is the one that really gets me in trouble, especially when I'm talking with hospital and health system folks. It's been my opinion that over the past few years, hospitals look at technology as a panacea. Oh, if we only spend $100 million on this new system, it will save us. It will take care of us. It will be there. These are all the answers. And it turns out, a lot of times, when we're providing care for people, it turns out technology, we don't need the highest tech things. We need sometimes really low tech things. So what is the technology that's appropriate to bring to bear on the situation? But in design thinking, we always come through the people door, the desirability side. So how do I make any experience, how do I make any product, how do I make any environment desirable to my user? So who is my user? Well, I would suggest that your user is probably your frontline staff as well as your patients, right? So how do we make this situation desirable for those users? Now, nurses and your frontline staff are genius at workarounds. Go on your floors. Go take a look at what's going on your floors and look for Post-it notes, look for labels. You know, anytime the labeler comes out, something's going on. There's a workaround there. Or look for Scotch tape. If you go out onto the floor and find any of those, start asking yourself, start putting on your designer hat and say, What's going on here? What is the workaround? What is the problem? And how can I fix that? So if my car knows my preferences, why doesn't my health system? You know, we have cars now that as I approach my car recognizes that I'm coming, that I'm coming to the car, and it will unlock the doors, and it will set all of the preferences inside, the steering wheel height, the seat, even the radio buttons. It knows my preferences without me having to do anything except walk up to the car. So why can't we do that with patients that are coming in through our door that actually have a schedule? Why can't we do scheduling that actually is tied to, phones or tied to some sort of ID that makes preferences really fast and efficient? If cars can do it, why can't we? Also with cars, I would say that if we're looking at innovation and if we're looking at enhancing experiences, we must look at touch points. When the patient was in pain or uncomfortable, they would say, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay. And the programming nurse would wave it off, like, she's not okay. So look for unexpected things and question why that's happening. And then put yourself in your user's shoes. So this is one of my colleagues at IDEO. You start by looking at the world through your user's eyes, and he just put a video camera on his head, checked himself into an ER, and went through the entire process. And you know what he saw? He saw a lot of this. He saw a lot of ceiling tiles, and he saw a lot of people doing things to him that were out of his view. And so what kind of an experience, what kind of a touch point are we talking about when this happens? And as designers, as leaders in innovative organizations, we really need to start empathizing with our users. Innovation requires a culture of failure, and I say in here, read permission. So that's your job, is to provide a safe zone for allowing your frontline staff to fail. And I'm not saying put your patients at risk. But what we're trying to do, what I'm talking about with innovation and with human-centered design, is evidence-based design. That's the scientific method, but it's also the design method. We look, we see what's going on in the field, we look for the workarounds, and then we design for those workarounds. We design to make the experience better. So our final solution should have a common thread all the way back to the original user that we saw in the field. This is a nasal shaver. So this goes up your nose and cuts out cartilage, excess tissue, bone spurs, whatever. And when we went into the field to see these originally, to see these surgeries, we saw lots of clogging instruments. And so one of our engineers said, at IDEO, one of the engineers said, well, what if we had a straight-through fluid path, and that is the marker, an offset gearbox and motor, that's the film canister, and a handle, that's the clothespin. And what we ended up with was a straight-through fluid path, an offset gearbox and motor, which ended up being the handle. Now, it was a lot tougher to engineer this product, but it was a lot better to use, and they were able to push through 3 or 4 surgeries more a day. The beautiful thing about this was that mom and dad now know, so when the hearing screening gets done, the nurse will come in and say, okay, Dad, turn the hearing screening card over, and now Dad goes over and he turns it over, and he feels like he's done something. He gets all proud, like, I've been a part of it, when we all know the true facts. But this allowed, in a very low resolution, it was mocked up or prototyped originally out of cardboard and paper, cardboard and Post-it notes, actually. It worked so well in that resolution that, and it was, remember, it was supposed to be a touch screen, but it worked so well in the low resolution that all of the nurses and all of the families said, okay, let's just leave it in this low resolution. Let's leave it so that Dad can actually do the flipping. Let's leave it so that it is a physical object. And that will make the experience even much better. And so I would ask you to look at your patients as users or consumers of healthcare. And if you move from patients to consumers of healthcare, then some of that expectation migration starts to move into your thinking, and you start thinking about, what do consumer experiences in the outside world, how can those start informing what we're doing inside our hospital? Number 3B, so I had to throw this one in because it really is a fact. try to be optimistic. If you're going to innovate and going to change, it really helps to be happy about it.
If you peel back the onion and you get past the soundbite and all the stuff that we all read, is there really any room for innovation? Does Health East have some magic that it can put in play that's suddenly going to take us to the next level? Or are we really talking about just survivalism?
It's who are the right leaders to do this? Who are the people that are sort of brave enough to take some chance, to maybe have some failures, but